The film begins by showcasing a future where technology has advanced significantly, with self-driving cars, AI-assisted homes, and advanced healthcare systems making life much easier for humanity. Many people appreciate the technological progress, but Gray believes advanced technology makes people lazy and overly dependent. Gray is a classic car mechanic who has just finished modifying a client's car. As Gray pulls the car out of the garage, his wife, Asha, arrives at the same time. Asha works for a technology company, specifically in American tech. Inside their home, Gray invites Asha to accompany him as he delivers the modified car to his client, who is also an old friend. Gray believes Asha will be impressed by the technology at the client's house. Although Gray dislikes technological advancements, his wife is quite fond of them. After some time, Gray takes Asha to a secluded beach with golden sands and the gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore, where only a large rock is visible. It turns out that Gray's client and old friend, Aeron, has a home hidden beneath the rock. Upon seeing the cutting-edge technology inside the house, Asha is delighted and impressed. Gray informs Aeron that his classic car has been fully modified and is ready outside. It turns out Asha knows Aeron as well, as he is the owner of a well-known computer company in America. Asha then explains that she also works for a tech company, though she admits it isn't as advanced as Aeron's company. Afterward, Aeron presents a groundbreaking chip he developed called STEM. This chip can enhance human communication and intelligence, but must be implanted into the human body. While Aeron elaborates on the capabilities of the device, Gray shows no interest, as he generally dislikes advanced technology, unlike Asha, who is very enthusiastic about it. After delivering Aeron's modified car, the couple drives home in Asha's high-tech, self-driving car. The journey is relaxed until they get into an accident. Fortunately, thanks to the car's sophisticated safety systems, both Asha and Gray emerge without serious injuries. Shortly after, 3 masked men approach them and kill Asha right in front of Gray. At the same time, a police drone captures the incident, while the masked men also intend to kill Gray. 3 months later, Gray remains unconscious in the hospital, though he was saved. When he finally regains consciousness, he finds himself completely paralyzed, with only his brain functioning properly. Following the incident, Gray now lives with his mother, who has set up a robot to assist him with his daily activities. A few days later, his mother takes Gray to the police station to meet a detective named Cortez. It is revealed that Cortez is handling the case of Asha's death. However, Gray is disappointed that the police have yet to catch the culprits. Cortez explains that the police are still working on the case. Although they have obtained footage from the drone, the authorities have not yet been able to identify the perpetrators. The scene shifts to Gray, now frustrated and bedridden, until his friend Aeron visits him. Seeing Gray's frustration with his current condition, Aeron offers a solution using his advanced neural chip invention. Aeron explains that if the chip is implanted in Gray's body, there is a high chance he will recover. Not long after, Gray is taken to Aeron's house, where his team secretly implants the chip into Gray's body. Aeron brought him there in secret to keep the chip's installation confidential. He feared that if the government found out, they would seize control of the chip and force him to comply with their demands. Once the chip was successfully implanted, Gray miraculously regained movement in his hands and even started walking. Aeron was both shocked and impressed by his invention's success in restoring Gray's abilities. Gray began testing his muscles, and Aeron reminded him that the chip embedded in his body was called STEM. Later, when Gray returned home, he received a message from his house robot that Detective Cortez had delivered files related to his wife's death. Additionally, Detective Cortez had provided a tape recording of the incident. As Gray reviewed the files and the tape, he suddenly heard a man's voice. Confused, Gray searched for the source, only to discover that the voice came from STEM, the chip implanted in his body. STEM could communicate with Gray by sending vibrations directly to his eardrums, using a precise frequency modulation technique to convert signals into sound. However, STEM clarified that it couldn't read Gray's thoughts, as its role was merely to execute commands from his brain. STEM then demonstrated its ability to analyze the video recording of the murder, revealing that one of the attackers used a weapon implanted in his hand. Additionally, STEM pointed out that one of the assailants had a tattoo on his hand. With STEM's help, Gray was able to sketch the tattoo in detail. After further analysis, STEM identified the man with the tattoo as David, and it also found his full address. Armed with this information about David, Gray considered reporting it to Detective Cortez. However, STEM advised against it, insisting that Gray must continue to pretend to be paralyzed in front of the detective to keep the existence of STEM a secret. The next day, Gray went to David's house following STEM's advice. Quietly sneaking into the house, Gray discovered a military uniform belonging to David, revealing that he was a member of an American Special Forces unit. Gray also found a message indicating that David and his accomplice, Daniel, were involved in Asha's murder. Realizing this, Gray asked STEM to locate Daniel using its system, as he planned to confront him as well. In the midst of his investigation, David suddenly appeared, prompting STEM to advise Gray to attack from behind. However, being a highly trained Special Forces member, David quickly overpowered Gray. Cornered, Gray asked STEM to take control of his body, leading to an intense fight. After the fight, Gray felt uneasy, realizing that he had just killed someone. Despite this, STEM tried to calm Gray and suggested that he clean up the scene to erase any traces of his fingerprints. The next day, Gray was summoned to Aeron's house, where Aeron expressed his disappointment that Gray had killed someone using STEM, the very invention Aeron had created. Aeron revealed that he had been monitoring Gray's movements all along and asked him not to repeat such actions. As a result, Gray attempted to explain that it wasn't him, but STEM that had killed David, as STEM had forcibly taken control of his body without his consent. He also mentioned that STEM had the ability to communicate through brain connections. Hearing this, Aeron was visibly shocked, as he hadn't known that STEM could communicate. Meanwhile, Detective Cortez was conducting an autopsy on David's body, which had been found dead. During the autopsy, she noticed that David had a weapon implanted in his hand. While analyzing the data from the crime scene, she discovered that Gray had been in the area near David's house before the murder took place. Later that evening, Detective Cortez visited Gray's home to question him about why he was near David's house at the time of the murder. However, thanks to STEM's intelligence, Gray was able to answer all of the detective's questions convincingly. This led her to believe that Gray's presence there was purely coincidental. After Detective Cortez left, STEM asked Gray if he wanted to find the second perpetrator, Daniel. Gray agreed. STEM had already tracked Daniel's frequent visits to a bar. Before heading to the bar, STEM warned Gray to be cautious, as Aeron might disable the system if he found Gray's location again. When Gray arrived at the bar, he immediately began asking around about someone named Daniel. Seeing Gray in a wheelchair and boldly challenging Daniel, the bar patrons mocked him, laughing and exchanging sarcastic remarks about his condition and bravery. At the same time, Daniel was impressed by Gray's courage in coming to the bar alone, despite being paralyzed. He then took Gray to a secluded area. At that moment, Gray told Daniel that he was the one who had killed David. Unsurprisingly, Daniel didn't believe him, assuming Gray was just a paralyzed man. At that moment, Gray instructed STEM to take control of his body, and a fight ensued between them. When Daniel was cornered, Gray demanded to know who else had been involved in his wife's death. Eventually, Daniel revealed a name, James. Upon hearing this, Gray killed Daniel. Meanwhile, Aeron had already discovered that Gray had attacked again with STEM's help. As a result, Aeron decided to deactivate STEM's system remotely. At the same time, STEM alerted Gray that Aeron was about to disable the system. Gray asked what he should do, and STEM explained that there was a hacker nearby who could help keep the system active in his body. Arriving at the hacker's location, Gray began losing strength, as Aeron was gradually shutting down STEM's network in his body. Fortunately, Gray collapsed just outside the hacker's door. He quickly offered the hacker money in exchange for reactivating STEM's system within him. Elsewhere, James arrived at the site of the earlier fight and found Daniel's body. Realizing that Gray was the killer, James also deduced Gray's current location. It was revealed that James had a chip implanted in his body, just like the one Gray had. The scene shifts to the young hacker, who, using advanced decryption software and specialized neural interface tools, successfully reactivates STEM's network in Gray's body. The hacker explains that Gray will need a few minutes to fully reconnect with STEM. Not long after, CCTV footage, accessed by the hacker, reveals that James and one of his henchmen are approaching the location. Not wanting to get involved, the hacker quickly leaves. When James enters, he finds Gray lying helpless. At the same time, STEM's network finally fully reactivates. As one of James' henchmen corners Gray, he quickly asks STEM to take control of his body, allowing him to defeat the henchman. After the fight, Gray manages to escape and decides to return home. However, his mother accidentally sees Gray moving and realizes that he is no longer paralyzed. Left with no choice, Gray explains that he underwent a secret operation performed by his friend Aeron, and asks his mother not to tell anyone that he is no longer paralyzed. Meanwhile, Aeron is shown feeling deeply saddened as STEM, his creation, has now disappeared from his radar. Sometime later, Gray is asleep but wakes up when Detective Cortez arrives at his home, accompanied by his mother. Cortez begins questioning Gray about the bar incident, where several people were found dead. She also questions him because his wheelchair was found at the scene. However, thanks to STEM's assistance, Gray once again manages to give convincing answers, leaving Detective Cortez puzzled. After Cortez leaves, Gray discusses his next steps with STEM. Unbeknownst to him, Cortez had hidden a recording device in Gray's jacket during the interrogation. However, all Cortez can hear is Gray speaking to himself, as she has no idea who he is actually talking to. As Gray prepares to track down James, Cortez quietly follows him, keeping her distance to avoid detection. During the trip, Gray discovers the recording device in his jacket, realizing that the detective is likely trailing him. Shortly after, a sophisticated electric car appears and hacks Cortez's vehicle, causing it to crash. After escaping from Cortez, Gray reaches James' residence. When he confronts James, Gray demands to know why he killed his wife. James admits that he was following orders from someone else, and further reveals that he, too, has a chip implanted in his body, just like Gray. Gray inspects James' listening device and is shocked to discover that it was Aeron who ordered the hit on him and his wife. This revelation confirms that Aeron was the mastermind behind Asha's death. Realizing the truth, Gray rushes to confront his old friend. Upon arriving at Aeron's house, Gray swiftly eliminates the guards and approaches Aeron, who appears resigned to his fate. Gray demands to know why Aeron made him paralyzed and killed his wife. However, before Aeron can answer, Detective Cortez suddenly arrives and orders Gray to surrender. As she attempts to handcuff Gray, STEM takes control of his body, and Gray struggles to resist, not wanting to harm the detective. Desperate, Gray begs Cortez to shock him with a taser. Unexpectedly, Aeron reveals that the real mastermind behind all of this is STEM. It turns out that not only has STEM taken control of Gray, but it has also been controlling Aeron. STEM's ultimate goal is to become fully human, and it has chosen Gray as its vessel to grow and eventually take over humanity. Realizing the truth, Gray's body suddenly moves on its own, killing Aeron before grabbing a gun. Despite Gray's best efforts to fight back and regain control, STEM's superior intelligence prevails. It manipulates Gray's mind, causing him to hallucinate. In his mind, Gray sees his wife still alive, while in reality, his body is killing Detective Cortez. In the end, STEM completely takes over Gray's body, gaining full control. Moral lesson from the story: when a computer chip starts talking to you, maybe it's time to take a break before it takes over your life. And remember, if your friend offers to put a chip in your body, maybe just stick with regular doctor appointments instead.